The fires burning in Southern California have been propelled by unusually strong Santa Ana winds. There is almost universal scientific consensus that these winds that are blowing at near hurricane force are a result of climate change. Climate change has many causes and many potential solutions. Some of those are technological, some of those are cultural. For Tech Republic and ZDNet in New York, my name is Dan Patterson, speaking with Dr. Hugh Seeley. Dr. Seeley is and recently spoke at the COP23, that is the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, and he is one of the foremost experts and a co-chair of the Paris Agreement's Article 6 negotiations. Dr. Seeley, thank you very much for your time today. Within UN circles, COP22, COP23 were very large events that convened leaders from all over the world. But for viewers who are unfamiliar with the climate change conference, I wonder if you could provide a little bit of context and background about what happens at the UN Conference on Climate Change.
Well, the COP is actually an acronym for the Conference of the Parties, and that's the parties that have ratified the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And there are over 190-something countries that have ratified that convention. And you may remember that in 2015 at COP21, or the 21st Conference of the Parties, we signed the Paris Agreement, which is a historic occasion, and it took the world significantly forward in our combating of climate change. Now, in 2015 in Paris, that Paris Agreement, that requires 5 years basically to be operationalized. And that's what we've been doing in this interim period between 2015 and 2020, is working on the nuts and bolts of what we call the Paris Agreement work program. So we had COP22 last year, and now we've had COP23 in Bonn this year.
And, I introduced this segment by saying there's near universal scientific consensus about the impact of climate change. But can you take us into that a little bit? There are, as we are all familiar, there is a lot of fake news and there is a lot of confusion about climate change, whether it's man-made or natural. I wonder if you could help us understand the science, the facts that drive the climate change discussion.
Sure. Well, we take our information, we the negotiators on behalf of governments of the world, we take our science from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, what's called the IPCC. And this is a grouping of hundreds of scientists who they don't do the research themselves. They review thousands of articles over a period of time. And they submit a summary of these articles every 5 to 7 years. And the last IPCC report, which is the 5th assessment report, came out in around 2013, 2014. And then that had two unequivocal decisions that came out of that report. One was that climate change is occurring, and two, that mankind or man is causing climate change. So that's not unequivocal. The science is absolutely clear. We are seeing carbon dioxide levels and temperatures higher than we've seen in over 800,000 years. And the path that we're on now is a path towards at least 3 degrees Celsius of warming over pre-industrial times. Now, what does that mean? It means for a small island where I live right now, and I'm in the Caribbean speaking to you, it means that a number of islands will cease to exist as viable human settlements by the end of this century. So this is an existential issue. I'm past the argument of fake news, Dan. I teach climate change at a university to American students. And it's gotten less and less, but usually in a class there's one climate skeptic. And I respect their views, but quite frankly, the science is absolutely clear.
And I'm so glad that you emphasized that point, because in technology, we talk about science, we talk about facts. And to that end, I wonder if you could help us understand the current state of technological solutions or proposed technological solutions, and then maybe take us into the future and help us understand how technology can really help stem the tide of climate change.
Dan, there's good news and there's bad news when it comes to technology. This is my personal opinion here. I'm not speaking on behalf of any committee that I sit on or anything like that. So let me make that absolutely clear. The good news is that the technology is there for us to mitigate climate change, renewable energy in particular. There's a myth that's been perpetuated by others that says that to maintain the standard of living that we have now, we have to continue to burn fossil fuels. That is a myth. That's a myth that's been perpetuated by those who stand to lose by changing the status quo. It is quite clear to me that we can maintain and even enhance our standard of living in terms of our air quality if we move away from combustion of fossil fuels. And there's enough technology there, and it's scalable and it's cheap enough in terms of solar, wind, ocean energy, geothermal, waste energy, et cetera, that we can go almost 100% renewable. That is the good news as when it comes to technology. The bad news when it comes to technology is that there is, and again, this is a personal opinion, an over-reliance on the part of climate scientists on what we're calling negative emissions technologies. Technologies that will come in, they hope, in the future that would allow us to strip carbon from the atmosphere, existing carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, be able to take that out. And that reliance on unproven technologies of the future is, to me, worrisome.
So what are some of the solutions here? And again, this is an incredibly nuanced topic that requires a longer conversation I hope we can have in the future. But have we passed the point of no return? Or are there technological solutions, are there behavioral solutions that we can implement right now to at least slow the impact of climate change?
I think there have to be some massive policy decisions that have to be taken. I think the technology is already there. There is technology to replace fossil fuel combustion both in electricity generation and in transport. And if we did that, then we would be removing the bulk of the emissions that are occurring, and we would have virtually have solved the problem. The science is telling us that we have to peak our emissions by 2020, and we are almost in 2018. If you're asking me, is that politically possible for the global trajectory to bend so rapidly that we peak our emissions in 2020, recognizing that the year after 2015 and 2016, or atmospheric emissions went up. So and therefore, I would argue that no, it is not politically possible to do so. Is it scientifically possible to turn around our global trajectory? Yes, but it would require a political will that I see as absent. It would require a moratorium, for example, on further oil and gas exploration. It would require a ban on the combustion of coal without carbon capture and storage globally. It would require a Marshall Plan, a global Marshall Plan in terms of financial flows to deploy renewable energy technologies and decarbonize large emerging economies. I'm talking now about the Brazils, the Indias, the Chinas of the world. This is not only a developed country problem, this is a developing country problem as well. And from a small island, I don't really care where the ton of CO2 is coming from. I don't care if it's historic, I don't care if it's current. I just want it to stop.
I think that those are profound words, and there are hopefully things that business, government, and technologists, along with scientists, can help do to beat back this disturbing trend. Dr. Hugh Seeley is the co-chair of the Paris Agreement's Article 6 negotiations. He is also one of the world's foremost environmental experts that convened at COP23 to discuss the future of climate change. Dr. Seeley, I hope that we can speak again in the near future. I wonder if you could leave us with a forecast. Where are we in 12 months, 24 months, 36 months from COP23? What does policy look like, and what does the science look like?
Dan, I cried with joy in Paris in 2015 when we signed the Paris Agreement. Now I have a sense that we've lost the momentum. Perhaps it was inevitable because of what's happened in the U.S. and the pending withdrawal of the largest economy of the world from the Paris Agreement. I think 2018, the next meeting, which is going to be in Poland in a town called Katowice, is going to be critical. Why do I say that? It's because there are a number of stock takes that we have to do in 2018. One of them called the Talanoa Dialogue, named after the Fijians who acted as president of this last COP. And in that stock take, we're supposed to determine where are we now in terms of our pathways of emissions trajectories. Where are we now in terms of the financial flows that are supposed to occur from developed to developing countries? And in both cases, I think our report card is going to be fail. And unless we recognize that we have to re-inject a sense of urgency and achieve what we need to achieve by 2020, then I would not buy a house on the coast of my island. Let me put it that way.